Funny, and of course, a #1 hit on the charts. When I was a senior in high school, I wrote Carol a letter of admiration. Had put in a contest. Vicki Lawrence started the Carol Burnett show when she was less than 17 years old. Everyone else was smarter, older, and had more experience. She wasn't. But there was more going on behind those studio doors than just age. Carol Burnett had tight rules that didn't work the same way for Vicki. There was a time when she broke character while practicing. Carol stopped everything, called the whole group to the center of the stage, and gave a speech that made Vicki freeze and feel bad about herself. That wasn't the worst part. The writers put her to the test by writing scenes that couldn't happen. She got painful hives all over half her body because Tim Conway hit her texts. But what's the real shock? The 5-year silence that came after. Vicki Ann Axelrod was born on March 26, 1949, in a quaint area in Inglewood, California, not far from Los Angeles. Howard, her dad, had deep scars from the past. In the 1930s, his Jewish family left Austria to avoid growing danger and came to America through Ellis Island. Howard put in a lot of work to become a certified public accountant, but he still wasn't welcome everywhere. When people saw his last name, they called off meetings. Some people wouldn't even touch his hand. Also, his wife, Annaline Lloyd, was born in Germany and was Jewish. But she gave up that when she became a truly Christian Scientist. That meant there were no doctors or even painkillers in the house. Vicki's mom would just pray if she got sick. It was funny in their simple home, even though it didn't have much. Vicki was already putting on plays when she was 5 years old. She would get an old coat, turn a broom into a microphone, and start singing like Carol Burnett and other stars. The living room turned into her stage. It was fun for her to make her parents laugh. She was sometimes asked to perform at parties for neighbors. A lot of people saw her, but there was also something more important going on. Because of their last name, her dad had seen too much hate. He didn't want Vicki or her brother to have the same walls around them as they grew up. In the 1950s, he made a decision. He changed their last name from Axelrod to Lawrence. It was hard for Vicki to understand at first. It made me want to hide. She realized years later that it was for life. Vicki's voice began to stand out at school. She joined neighborhood singing groups, worked on her harmony, and every week she got better. She sang "Over the Rainbow" at a talent show when she was 10 years old. People were moved by the passion in her voice, which was strong. People stood up and cheered for her. That night changed her in a way that will last. Her goal was to work in show business, but she didn't know how to get there. Things were tough at home. People who were sick were treated with faith and silence. Not any drugs, just silence, prayer, and hope. Vicki had fevers after fevers that wouldn't go away. She later linked some of her health problems, like having chronic hives, to those times when she wasn't treated as a kid. As she lay in bed shaking from the fever, she learned what it meant to keep going. She moved away from what the church taught as she got older. But the lessons she learned as a child about hiding her pain never left her. She wasn't just another student at Morningside High School by the time she got there. She had a lot of power. Her senior year, 1967, she was top of her class. She also led the cheer squad, planned the rally routines, and added jazz moves she had seen at clubs. People in her class called her a star before she was one. She is very likely to win without a doubt. The press from the area even came to her gatherings. In one hand she had a mic, and in the other she led a cheer. An ASA science test in the morning. It wasn't always easy for her to see her dreams. Vicki first wished to become a dental assistant. She took classes to become a dentist because she liked her doctor and thought the job would be safe and clean. After that, something happened. She joined the singing club at school and was asked to sing the national anthem at a Lakers game. Talent agents saw her somewhere in the stands. Afterward, they went up to her and told her she was good on stage. That sudden event shook everything up. Maybe she wasn't meant to have white teeth and work in a quiet office. Her voice might have gone in a different direction. There was a beauty contest in her area that year called the Miss Fireball contest. A gas store chain in the area ran it. She did a brave comedy act where she imitated Lucille Ball for the talent part. It worked. She got the prize and $500. Oh, that's real money for a kid in 1967. More than that, it invited her to join the Young Americans, a music group the whole country. Vicki didn't wait around for permission, even though doors were beginning to open. When she was 17, she began sneaking out to try out for ads. She didn't tell anyone because she knew her strict parents wouldn't let her. She got a job in a local milk ad after one of those tryouts. It was quiet as she danced, got paid, and put the money away. That quiet defiance showed her that she could do it. She didn't need anyone to agree with her. The letter then came. She wrote Carol Burnett a love letter when she was still in high school. She put in a newspaper article about her beauty contest win and a picture of herself dressed up as one of Burnett's TV characters. She didn't expect a response. But Carol Burnett not only replied, she also hung the picture in her dressing room. Then she went to see Vicki play live. Carol put the Miss Fireball hat on Vicki's head when she won it. Everything changed that night. In 1967, the same year, Carol asked her to come in and perform. Vicki was put through a screen test even though she had never worked as an actress before. She was up against someone who was trained to be in soap operas. They asked both women to act out a fight between sisters, but Vicki stole the show. She made her feel like Carol's real sister with her natural joking, quick banter, and ability to make things up on the spot. She got the part. The first episode of The Carol Burnett Show, which aired on September 11, 1967, was her very first starring job. She was 18 years old. In one night, she had to remember 12 full pages of plot. There are no cue cards or second chances. She did a great job on stage in front of over 1,000 people. That wasn't just proof of her skill. It put her on the map in the history of TV. She tried to go to college and be famous at the same time. The show ran 30 weeks a year, but she went to UCLA to study theater arts. She had to rush from campus to the studio for 5 hours of rehearsals, sketch rewrites, and wardrobe changes every day, starting before dawn. She went to school every day with comedy greats like Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. She could no longer keep up with the double life after 2 years. She quit. She was already learning from the best in the business, not because she wasn't smart. There were a lot of hard parts for her. They didn't trust a new team member, so they put her to the test. They gave her small parts with no dialogue to see how well she could stay in character. In one sketch, she sat at a dinner table by herself while Harvey Korman made up non-stop chaos around her. They wished she would break. She didn't. She got better at timing in those quiet scenes more than in any speech. In 1968, not even a year after becoming famous, she went to Vietnam with Johnny Grant on a USO tour. She was only 19 years old. She sang, "These Boots Are Made for Walkin'" one night. 5,000 soldiers crammed into a hot camp city. They yelled, clapped, and cheered like their lives were in danger. Because they did, in a way. She saw the hurt, the chaos, and the fear from offstage. It helped her grow up faster than being famous ever could. It was 1967 when Vicki Lawrence started The Carol Burnett Show. She was only 17 years old. The other people were all older, more experienced, and taught. She wasn't. She had to keep up, though. No one was allowed to act out of character by Carol Burnett, not even during practice. Vicki laughed one day during a dull sketch. Carol put everything on hold. She called the whole group to the middle of the stage, where the producers were watching, and gave them a strict speech about being on time. Vicki stood there frozen and ashamed, knowing that this wasn't just a job, it was war. She was too funny to be true. She had to stay alive. She got a little scared, but the event also made her stronger. From then on, every word, look, and cue had to hit. She didn't say anything even though the pressure was getting stronger. She was determined to earn her place in that room full of giants. There was no reason for her to play Eunice. I meant for Carol to get it. But something about the way Vicki spoke changed everything. That line was mean, it said something like, "Life is AB asterisk TCH, and so are you." It didn't sound like Vicki had written it when she said it. It seemed real. A lot of artists paid attention. The crowd did too. Carol did the same thing. Vicki wasn't being mean as a joke. Strange and loud, it was a mirror. It worked. Eunice became a normal person. People were ready for an emotional gut punch every time she walked onto that dark stage and spoke. The sketch changed the whole tone of the show, and Vicki wasn't the only kid who needed to be watched. She was the one who stole the show. Anchoring acts and taking responsibility for the pain behind the jokes. It was 1976 when Vicki Lawrence was nominated for her first Emmy. It wasn't pure joy, even though it should have been. She didn't feel like she belonged. That year's other nominees were well known, had stage credits, and won awards. She had a sketch show and played the spoiled brat, the southern mess, and the loudmouth for years. Vicki left the game, locked the door to her dressing room, and cried when Rue McClanahan won instead. Even though she knew she had done a good job, she still felt like they had made a mistake when they put her name on the list. She had lived with legends for years, claiming to be one of them. This made me think that maybe she wasn't. Nomination didn't get rid of that kind of worry. It only got stronger. For 11 years, the show ran. That's more than 250 shows. Week after week, sketch after sketch. Tim Conway's improvised music became popular. Vicki had no idea what he would do, but she always had to follow suit. She had to change her lines a few times during a scene just to stay in it. In 1972, the stress finally got to her. Her arms and neck were covered in painful hives. She was too tired to sleep or rest. She would sometimes be itchy before she even put on her outfit. She kept going, though. She always did. It was too fast for the cams. Someone else would step in if she ever broke. Carol Burnett was more than just her boss. She turned into a mother figure, a teacher, and a guardian. To help Vicki keep up with what people in Hollywood expect of her, she gave her a closet full of 50 custom-made clothes. She did have rules, though. One of them was strict. Do not date your friends. Then Vicki broke it. She went out with one of the writers. She found out. It caused a quiet but heated argument behind the scenes. Carol wasn't just mad, she was also let down. Vicki had worked hard to keep her safe, she told her. Vicki felt the full weight of that loss because she was torn between being a child and a mentor. That moment wasn't about a boy, it was about trust and how tricky it was to find the right mix between being friends, being quiet, and growing up in public. Something strange happened in 1972. A music director named Gary Klein saw Vicki sing at a party for cast members. In just a few days, he signed her to Bell Records. In the same year, she taped The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia over the course of 8 long, hard hours. It was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 by January 6, 1973. It sold over 1 million copies and stayed on the charts for over 20 weeks. It shocked everyone. The #1 comedian on TV right now. It became gold in May 1973. That year, she was the first big-name actor to have a hit like that. However, as more cameras came in and the pressure mounted, Vicki began to feel that fame in music came with a different kind of pain that she hadn't been ready for. In July 1973, her first record came out. More than 2 million copies were sold around the world. But by the end of that year, she could no longer speak. Her voice cords had grown bumps on them. She was told to stop and get surgery. She didn't. She believed in prayer instead of medicine because she was raised in Christian Science. She did shows and put herself at risk until the pain got too much in 1974. She finally gave up. It made her think again about her desire for fame. Her body was telling her she had everything to lose. Vicki went on The Tonight Show in April 1973. She talked and laughed with Johnny Carson while they sang. A lot of people watched. It went back to the top of the charts. There was something deeper going on behind the cameras, though. She began getting a lot of letters, many of them from fans who didn't know any limits. One of them got into her Los Angeles hotel room. She was by herself. The police were called. The threat went away, but the fear stayed. Fame wasn't just a stage and a spotlight anymore. It showed weakness. It was hard to tell who was behind the next door. Everyone should have been happy about the gold record. Instead, it made things worse. She was warned by Carol Burnett. She would rather listen to music than play. She told her to stay where she was, but Vicki wanted more. She left the show for a while to go on a tour of Europe. The space between them got bigger. Carol thought it was careless. Vicki saw it as being free. Mentor and protege weren't on the same page for the first time. Not even when the cheers stopped did the crack in their bond go away. Delta Dawn, her next song, was all over the place by early 1974. It got a lot of airplay on the radio, but it stopped at number 40. It wasn't as magical as the first hit. Record executives were looking for easy, happy pop. Vicki wanted something deeper and more full. They fought. By the middle of 1974, there were no more music offers. There were no more hits or buzzes. There was only quiet. That's when she turned around and chose to watch TV again. It was short, bright, and heavy. It didn't end in failure, it ended in being worn out. The wedding took place on June 29, 1972. While they were on their honeymoon, Russell yelled at people who wanted to sign Vicki's autograph. The honeymoon was over at LAX. He yelled at her and said she was bragging. The police had to step in. Everyone in the terminal stared. It was a bad sign. One that followed them home, and after 18 months, it was over. At the beginning of 1974, she asked for a divorce. There were rumors that Russell had cheated. There were tabloids in Nashville that ran hotel stories and late-night rumors. He didn't say no. He only said that her fame made him feel small. She didn't argue back. The split was messy, public, and honest. It went from her being a rising star to the front page of a newspaper. She didn't want that to happen, but she couldn't stop it. Then Al Schultz, who does makeup for the Burnett show, came on. Carol herself introduced them by yelling from a window in the changing room. She didn't say anything. It hurt too much the last time. They went to Las Vegas on November 16, 1974. There is no press, no family, and only a few friends. A small church was where they got married. Even after a while, his parents didn't know. It was clean, quiet, and finally hers. Courtney was born on May 3, 1975. She is their daughter. But being happy cost something. Vicki had sadness after giving birth. With the baby, she cried, she couldn't sleep, and she got stress hives right before the tapings. She'd dress up and smile big when she got there. Then fall apart behind the scenes. If someone did know, they didn't ask. She didn't stop. On July 1, 1977, 2 years after that, she had her son Garrett. She was making movies for both the Carol Burnett show and Mama's Family at the same time. Sometimes while still in her wig and costume, she breastfed in between acts. Al also worked 14-hour days. They didn't see each other very often. They were quiet as they went to therapy. No cameras, no news stories. There are only two people trying to stay alive in the machine. There was a crazy story on the air in 1975 about an elephant in a show. He kept it a secret from everyone. The group laughed out loud. No, Vicki didn't. She told her husband she was mad. Get him, he said. So, in the middle of the next scene, she snapped, I hate elephants. The moment was broken. Everyone did something bad, even Carol. It still aired. People loved it. Ratings went up by 15%. Mama stopped being a sketch and turned into a force at that point. She still didn't feel safe, though. At one point, Tim Conway hit her copy. She had 10 minutes to live after going out blind. She almost did it. She cried afterward. It wasn't Tim. She learned how to do comedy even though she wasn't trained in it. She started to push back in the end. She stayed strong, but her fears stayed the same. In 1982, Eunice was shown as a full-length talk show. Vicki gave Mama such a strong performance that she hit Harvey Korman in just one take. CBS freaked out. They believed it went too far. They thought about cutting it. She fought back and said that was how her mother would act. It aired whole, and people really liked it. That one show changed her future again. She was up for 5 Emmys but lost all of them. It hurt more to hear directors say that she would never make it on her own. That's right. Then told them about Mama's Family. The show was picked up. It ran for years and had a lot of shows. That's pretty good for a kid who laughed during practice. When Vicki Lawrence started Mama's Family in 1983, she wasn't just writing for the Carol Burnett Show. She was making something stubborn, loud, and strangely familiar to millions of homes in the United States. More than 20 million people watched the first week it was on. They were brave to order 100 shows ahead of time, which showed how much faith they had in this rough-voiced matriarch. Thelma Harper, who used to crack one-liners and short sketches, had all of a sudden turned into a full-on sitcom character, grumpy and rude but with a greater meaning. Vicki had made people believe that this wasn't just another knockoff. It was a regular mirror that was crooked but honest. She fought from the start for how that mirror looked, though. In an early draft, Mama was seeing her brother-in-law romantically. Vicki read it, slammed the door, and went right to the room where she writes. She didn't ask. She told them it was being written over again. She didn't care that shows were getting more and more crazy. She didn't sign up for that show. The executive producer, Joe Hamilton, who used to be her father-in-law, supported her. The writers changed the story but kept the grit and left out the shock. No one could talk about Mama's morals after that. Vicki drew the line, and that line was the show's main idea. Vicki didn't like it when the network chose to move production from CBS Stage 33 to KTLA in order to save money. This was the same soundstage where the Carol Burnett Show had done so well. It was a gift at Stage 33. She didn't want to go to the first table read because KTLA meant to cut corners. The group just sat there and waited. She didn't come in. Her quiet was stronger than any word she spoke. Things were tense for weeks afterward, but she got her point across. For her, this wasn't just work. Every scene was filled with memories, pride, and a bit of defiance. They brought in Betty White and Rue McClanahan in 1983. It had a great sound. Betty wanted to be in charge. Some people didn't like that. Egos were flying around the studio, and tempers began to flare. Vicki knew that a diva fight would ruin the show, so she started throwing dinners for the group. There is only one table with plates and no cameras. Bit by bit, the tension broke. The group started to stick together. Vicki did more than play mom on TV and in movies. Real life, she was a peacemaker who smoothed over rough spots that texts couldn't. NBC then turned off the show. Ma's Family was cancelled in 1984, after only 2 seasons. Vicki was getting paid $50,000 every show. Fans were watching, but the network said the show's numbers were going down. Vicki made it public. In appearances and on talk shows, she said bad things about NBC's choice. She said they left too soon. Then distribution showed that she was right. After 1986, there were a lot more episodes. The show became more well-known. A lot of people watched even after the network left. They had 130 shows by 1986. Vicki's gut feelings were better than the suits, but fights don't always happen behind closed doors. When Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton split up in 1983, things weren't going so well. Carol thought it was wrong for Vicki to keep working on Hamilton's show Mama's Family. Vicki's life had been changed by a friendship that ended. They didn't talk for 5 years. Carol didn't give her a straight call. Vicki's husband Al Schultz handled everything. It was very quiet. When the reunion specials came out, they barely talked about the freeze. There were hints in the Hollywood talk, but the truth stayed hidden. Wikipedia made a few hints about it. Wounds from personal lives got into work lives. And Vicky's body lied to her too. She was told she had chronic idiopathic urticaria in 1972. More than half of her skin broke out in painful hives when she was stressed. At times, it got too much to take Mama's family. She did everything except what her background in Christian Science told her not to do. Medicines. And finally, in 2005, she got Xolair shots. The results came right away. For the first time in decades, she felt better. She talked about it in interviews, even with Allergic Life. She had always been in pain, but she stayed funny. Her husband, Al Schultz, had been her steady rock. He was one of the best makeup artists in Hollywood and worked behind the scenes while Vicki got all the attention. Some people said bad things about him too, though. The tabloid said he flirted with Cher on the set of Sonny and Cher. They talked about possible jealousy and marriage problems. All of it wasn't proven, but the rumors, they hurt. He stayed out of the way the whole time. He passed away in 2022, aged 82. She was only 30 years old when she became the youngest head of makeup on the West Coast at CBS. Most people knew him as Vicki's husband, though. Peaceful Will. Lots of love. Vicki's personal life was rough from 1986 to 1990, when the show was brought back to life in reruns. Courtney, her daughter, fought back hard. Getting back together in ways that reminded Carol Burnett of what she had been through with her own children. It made Vicki shake. For the first time, she went to therapy. She said it hurt and opened her eyes. It made her think about how her fame had changed being a mom. The Encyclopedia of World Biography said. This was a big moment in her life. Laughs on screen, reckonings off screen. She had had enough of live shows by the 1990s. She found comfort in voice work. She had parts in cartoon shows like Peter Pan and the Pirates. She only had her voice, no cameras or makeup on. It let her breathe. But in 1992, when a Carol Burnett reunion show was being planned, Vicki turned it down. It was still bleeding. Fans wanted to feel old. Vicki wasn't prepared to lie. The disappearance was confirmed by IMDb. There was still weight in their silence. In 1993, it finally broke. In 1991, Vicki's father died, and that sadness stayed between them. At the 1993 Emmys, Carol Burnett said she was sorry in public. Live on stage. Vicki was caught off guard by it. They cried and hugged. The get-together turned into a TV show called The Carol Burnett Show. Back Together Again aired that same year. It felt like nothing had ever gone wrong because it was soft and warm. Still, the years had left marks, even where people laughed. The year 2025 came along. Vicki is now 76. Made the news again. She was cast as a surprise in season 2 of Palm Royal. Carol Burnett was already a big star. There were hints on the show that Vicki's character would have something to do with Carol's strange past. Carol had asked for her directly. They worked together again after more than 40 years. The meeting didn't just make us miss each other, it helped us heal. Fans leaned in to see if the old spark could still light up the screen, but it was bad news again. Al Schultz died at their Long Beach home on June 19, 2024. The man who had been waiting for 50 years was no longer there. He was 82 years old. It would have been their golden anniversary in a few months. Vicki turned her sadness into something else. She started to speak up for makeup artists and fight for their rights as union members. Some people used her death to speak out. The business world read about it in TV Insider. Vicki started a makeup line on HSN in the early 2000s, a long time before all of this. Vicki's Fireball Red lipstick was the big hit. It made more than $1 million in the first year. The women loved what she made because it felt like her. Brave, funny, and not trying too hard. She chose the colors, made the logo, and turned her style into a company. The lipstick did more than sell, it spoke to people. My News to Use called it an important beauty item. She was no longer just an entertainer. She was well known. She is now writing her autobiography and will host the 2024 season of Win, Lose, or Draw. Even at age 76, he can still laugh, remember things, and surprise people. She credits Carol Burnett with 90% of her success, but she also says she feels bad that she didn't speak out more when it was important. That voice. The voice that wouldn't read a table draft before is now louder. No longer is it just about the jokes. That's about how long it took to stop laughing.